Hi everyone, and can you believe it? This is part 4 of Principles in Times of Crisis with my good friend Mike Ivey. And so here we are, Mike. How's it going? How is lockdown day, whatever it is you're on over there in South Africa?
So we're on day 21. This was supposed to be the last day originally, but I think we all knew that it wasn't going to last 21 days, or we strong suspicion that it would go on longer. So we still got another 2 weeks, but going well, going well. Beautiful weather here today in Durban, and it's been a busy day, but thankful for busy. So all
Yeah.
good.
Well, you've got beautiful weather and we've still got alcohol stores. So all good, really.
It's quite a contentious issue here in South Africa
I
that
I heard, I did hear that.
yeah.
So we're expecting an announcement tonight. We're expecting another 3 weeks of lockdown. So I'm preparing myself mentally, physically, and removing all knives and long ropes.
Yeah.
So Mike, we were discussing yesterday, actually the whole thing about mindfulness. It's your phrase, and we said that maybe today we would include maybe touching on meditation, and I think you phrased something quite nicely here. Strategies to help us slow down. I think. Do you want to? How about you kicking off and just elaborate on that, and let's just see where this goes.
Yeah, so like I said yesterday, sometimes being present, being in the moment. I've sort of found it a difficult term at times because you're desperately trying to get yourself into the present. But I think a better way of looking at it is how do we slow our our thinking and be more focused in what it is that we're doing versus having so much going on in our mind at one stage. And I think that's a really, really great practice to develop, which is just the slowing down, almost moving us away from being cortisol driven to getting some of those other chemicals flowing through our bodies like oxytocin, serotonin, and those sorts of things. So I like a term that I learned through Brené Brown, and it's called the practice of calm. And it's interesting, anxiety is a hugely contagious emotion. I'm sure we've all experienced that. You go into a room and people are concerned about the future, and you quickly sucked into that. So too is calm. And the practice of calm is about the ability to breathe. And I found breathing to be an incredible tool to just slow one down. They say that on average, we breathe about 14, 15 times a minute. And if you think about it, if you're in panic, you tend to be panting. It's quick breath. When we're in a deep sleep and we're really relaxed, it's slow breathing. And so the ability to just fill your lungs, hold the breath in for a while and then breathe out, and then repeat that for a minute or two is an incredible way to just slow your mind down and just begin to focus on a couple of things. And whenever I do it, I immediately feel release. And when I do it with teams, people look at you a little bit strangely at first, saying, what are we doing here? All we're doing is biological. We filling our lungs with oxygen. And so, for example, there's a great strategy to just slow down and be in the moment.
Yeah, I got one of those eye watches, and there's got a function on it which every now and again reminds you to breathe. And so I don't say I do it all the time, but the times that I have done it, it's actually amazing how just taking 1 minute to focus on your breathing, how it does concentrate your thoughts and brings your energies down to a level, I've been doing some studying on cognitive behavioral therapy, which is something I'm very interested in, and the relationship between your emotions and your thoughts. And that by controlling firstly our thoughts, we then directly control our emotions. So I think meditation is tied into the ability to control or bring order into the way our mind works. You mentioned breathing. For me, I'm a musician, and I find that playing an instrument, just taking 10 minutes, put headphones on and play, allows my thinking to reorder, I think it's the word, finds its filing cabinets and puts everything back into order. And then I often can sit down and I can think clearly again. So I have that mental picture of files everywhere, and then I go away and I come back and somehow the files have been organized and I can reapply my mind.
Yeah, and you know, these strategies are not necessarily that we move into a very almost paralysis state of just it's actually so that we can act with a sense of urgency, but very, very focused urgency. And I had a conversation with a guy last night, and he was just talking about how in his team he wants work with the team, but he's a little bit nervous about saying, but I don't want us to do those fuzzy little things. He says, I need urgency. In a way, I need a sense of anger, and I so get him as well. You breathe so that you can act. You breathe so that you've got a sense of focus of what it is that you need to do. Yeah, sometimes you breathe so that you can just be calm and just enjoy stuff. But it's the ability to slow oneself down enables actually the speed. And
Yeah.
I know we already mentioned this one, but Nancy Klein, and I think she started from a whole lot of other people, maybe not, but you know, that go slow to go fast.
Yeah.
That counterintuitive calm, so we can.
Absolutely, in the urgency, you're actually paralyzed to think properly. You know, when you're being chased or you are feeling urgent, your whole vision narrows, your focus narrows, your attention narrows into a very small band, and you fail to understand what's going on around you. And so you actually need to physically slow down in order to start to take in a perspective. And actually, I think meditation is about bringing perspective back to our thoughts. By slowing down, you start to realize that actually there is a bigger scheme. My thoughts fit into a more ordered pattern than perhaps I thought they were. And another thing that I find, I mean, meditation is in all the 5 major religions, which is interesting, right? In their different ways. So certainly when you're, I guess, cooped up in home and you are trying to be productive, you ever get those times, Mike, where you're there and you're filled with an urgency to do something, but somehow you just can't get your thoughts to work together? Happens to me a lot. And I'm finding more and more that taking 10 minutes to go and play the piano, or to listen to something, or to breathe, or to stand in the garden, is that reorganizing. And that is as much meditation as sitting in the lotus position is listening to another form of music. Would you agree?
I would. So yesterday you mentioned, you know, self-awareness with your emotions, and when you find yourself scattered and something just isn't quite right, it's probably telling you something. And are we prepared to, again, I just want to use Brené Brown here because she's helped me a lot here, but it's are we prepared to rumble with that? And so the practice of calm is actually the breathing, but it's also going into what you need to go into, being curious about those emotions, and sometimes just a quick retuning can enable you to now come back strong. Like you say, play the piano, do these different things. Here's an interesting thing. Do we as individuals know, I like to use the term places of sanctuary. Do we know our places of sanctuary that we can go to so that we can return? And Dave, like you said, for you, it's playing the piano. For me, you know me, the coffee shop. I can't get to the coffee shops, but it's the coffee experience where I purposely slow down and I just enjoy the cup of coffee. And I said to Mandy, my wife, the other day, I said, I like coffee hot, not because I necessarily like hot coffee, but I want 10 minutes with the coffee.
I always have my coffee in takeaway cups. You notice, because of that reason.
But that's a place of sanctuary for me, and sanctuary so I can go and then I can return.
Yes.
8 feet, like we spoke about, it's a reminder so that I can return. Walking barefoot,
yes,
on the grass, being on the beach is a sanctuary for me. Diving into cold water, sanctuary for me, and it enables a return. So you've got playing the piano. What else?
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, if I want to be calm, stand in the shower, stand in the shower, and somehow the world can go to pot, and I'm fine, with that. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned a red glass of wine, because that is also a sanctuary that we go to. Perhaps not so healthy, but nonetheless. I think there's another picture someone shared with me. A good friend, mutual friend of ours, a guy called Rob Bell. He talks about someone was teaching him in surfing. And when you're in the surf, I mean, I'm not a surfer, but I can imagine the picture with the tumbling of the waves. He says sometimes you get thrown off balance and you fall into one of these very large waves and you're dragged through this washing machine. He says the very worst thing you can do in that situation is to try and fight the waves and the tides. You almost have to let your body go limp and you allow yourself to pop up the other side of the wave. And he uses a beautiful analogy that no matter how much of a tumble dryer you're in, you will always pop up. You'll always come up on top, and the wave will have gone. And sometimes I think we tend to feel we need to fight our emotions all the time. We're feeling depressed, we're feeling upset, and somehow we have to grit our teeth and say, no, we will be happy. I think sometimes it's counterintuitive. Sometimes we actually need to lie down and lean into some of those feelings and just not be angst about it. Say to ourselves, this will pass, this will go, and relax into it. Sometimes people meditate almost through gritted teeth, thinking that they need to fight these emotions that are going in. Quite the opposite. Sometimes we actually just need to lean into them and just be aware of all of the things that are going on. I don't know. Does that resonate with you, Mike?
Totally, totally. So, negative emotions aren't the best when you're trying to make a decision, but negative emotions are serving us. They're helping us. They're telling us things, and so we do need to lean into them versus suppress them. We've obviously got to manage our negative emotions. We can't walk around in front of everybody totally sad all the time, but we do want to ask questions possibly about our sadness. Sadness might mean something that you've lost really, really mattered. Anger can mean that there's an injustice in the world or an injustice in society that needs to be solved.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting, Mike, because this actually takes us very nicely into discussions about roots and fruits. Because thoughts, actually, emotions come from cognitive thinking, and usually the thinking is based on misassumptions, bad assumptions about things. So we see something and we feel the emotion, but we're not cognizant of the thoughts that produce the emotion, right?
Yeah.
So we see the fruit. The fruit is anxiety and depression and all of these things. But the root is a misunderstanding or bad assumption about something that actually we need to deal with. And the root could be very well down into our thinking that we need to explore. So there is this relationship, isn't it, between emotion and meditation. Part of meditation, I think, is beginning to quieten the emotions to allow us to understand the thinking. Would you agree?
Yeah, totally. So, and I think that's that word of rumble. Can you rumble with these? Dig deep into them so that you can find root issues versus just simply the surface issues. And that's best done in a place of slowdown. So yeah. David, so a question for you though. So you mentioned meditation a few times. How good are you at meditation?
Well, you see, we would have to define what meditation is. So my young son, actually my son Matthew and Chelsea are very, very much into meditation. They do it as part of their, and they tend to follow more of the Eastern Transcendental type of meditation. But by the way, there's 7 major types of meditation. I don't know if you're aware of that. There is mindfulness, there's transcendental, there's guided meditation, there's vipassana. Did you know that? There's a meditation called loving kindness, where in this form of meditation, you sit and you think about others and you send on rays of energy feelings of love and kindness towards them. How good is that? Eh? So that's actually a bona fide form of meditation. I guess my meditation really is one of two things. It is to play the piano. It is so that my mind and my emotions are almost lost and abandoned, and I come back into this place. The other one I have is journaling. Journaling is my place of meditation. There's a guy who wrote a book called Getting Things Done, and that's another discussion we can have one day. He says your mind is like a computer where you have a RAM and a ROM, and your RAM, if it gets so full, your computer slows down and can't work. You actually get stressed, headaches. Because the way you remove that, you unclutter it, is you start to write down all the thoughts that you have in your head. You just write them down, write them down, write them down. Anything, doesn't matter in any order. And you clear your thinking onto a piece of paper. And then when you have done that, you close the book and you sit still for a couple minutes. And he says your mind then allows it has a let go effect. It allows the letting go of those things because you've now committed it to paper, And I find that is tremendously helpful for me as a tool.
And I think the thing with journaling is you're really doing it for yourself, whether you never ever read it again.
Yes.
It's just the intentional action of getting this
exactly.
And by the way, I think that's probably the big word here is these are intentional actions. You mentioned even the glass of wine. There's a glass of wine that's just to have a glass of wine. And then there's that intentional slowdown, which says this is about savoring the moment, the coffee, the piano, meditation, prayerfulness, breathing. These are just intentional things we're doing so that we can get back into the game to hopefully find meaning, create value, fulfill purpose, just do these different things. And to me, so if we think about it as places of sanctuary, sorry, and I know time's probably up, but I asked you the question on meditation, and I think you answered so beautifully, because often when we think of meditation, we think of trying to get like one thought into our brain and just being so quiet, and a lot of people battle with that. But I think it's great, there are different things. We want to do things that are helpful to us.
Yeah.
And I find when I try and slow down, I might grab scripture, or I might grab something that I just begin to focus on. And I just try and remove distraction. But sometimes it's in repetition, the prayer that's repeated, the music that's sung. What's beautiful about singing is about managing your breath. The power of singing together is that we're managing our breath together.
Yes. Well, it's like the 8th beat, then finding that rhythm, that ties us down. Just for anyone that's listening, I use an app called Day One. It's an app that I use on my phone and my computer, and I use it for my journaling. And what I like about it is it sets up reminders every 2 years. This time 2 years ago, you were thinking and feeling this. And I find it tremendously helpful to see the progression of how you mature and you deal through things, by having an app like that. It might be something we could explore. Mike, it's been great again. Another 10 or 15 minutes of just great conversation. So tomorrow, let's explore more the root and the fruit thinking that we touched on today, and talk about how we manage to find the real roots to some of the fruit issues in our lives. Be great talking to you. Let's chat tomorrow.
Good idea. Cool. Thanks, Ivey. Cheers.